All right, future CPAs, welcome back. So let's be real. In your accounting career, you're going to be absolutely swimming in contracts, day in, day out. Knowing what to do when a contract goes sideways isn't just something you need for your exams, it's everything in the real world. So today, we're tackling a big one, breaches of obligation. Let's get right into it.
Okay, picture this. You're heading up your college org's anniversary bash. It's the event of the year. You somehow manage to book a super famous DJ, tickets are completely sold out, and the hype, it's through the roof. Literally everything is riding on this one night, this one single contract. So, what happens when the DJ just doesn't show up? Or worse, they do, and the whole thing becomes a total disaster. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to unpack.
All right, Section 1, the perfect party plan. So let's lay the groundwork. Your org signs a contract with a DJ. Boom. That piece of paper isn't just a suggestion. It's a legally binding relationship. You have to pay them, and they have to perform. That right there is the core of contract law.
So what is an obligation really? The textbook definition is a juridical necessity to give, to do, or not to do. Okay, what does that even mean? Juridical necessity is just a fancy way of saying the law can actually force you to do it. It's not just a pinky promise. For our party, the DJ has an obligation to do something very specific, show up and deliver an amazing performance. It's a legal duty, plain and simple.
Okay, let's get to the juicy part. Section 2, 4 deal-breaking party fouls. This is where the perfect plan completely falls apart. In law, we call this a breach. But for our purposes, and to make it stick in your head for the board exams, we're going to call them 4 major party fouls.
And here they are, the 4 ways things can go wrong. These are what we call voluntary breaches, which means the person who owes the obligation, our debtor, in this case the DJ, is the one at fault. We have default, which you'll also see called mora, fraud or dolo, negligence or culpa, and finally, contravention of the tenor. Let's use our party nightmare to figure out what each of these really means. First up, party foul number 1. The DJ was supposed to be on at 8 p.m. sharp. It's now 11 p.m. They finally show up, but half the crowd is already left. The vibe is dead. The party is a total flop. In the eyes of the law, this is called default or mora. It's all about failing to meet the timeline. But wait, it gets a little more specific. Not all delay is created equal. If the DJ is late, that's mora solvendi, the debtor's fault. But what if your org gave them the wrong address, and that's why they're late? Well, that's mora accipiendi, delay caused by the creditor, you. And what if you gave the wrong address and they left late? That's compensatio more, where both parties are in delay, and basically the faults cancel each other out. But for now, let's just focus on when it's the DJ's fault. Okay, LCPA pro tip. This is super important. The general rule is no demand, no delay. Meaning, you usually have to formally demand performance before someone is legally in delay. But, and this is a big but, there are exceptions you have to know. If the contract itself says demand isn't needed, or if the law says so, you're good. Another one, when time is the whole point of the contract. Think about a DJ for a New Year's Eve countdown. If they show up on January 1st, it's pointless, right? Also, if demand would be totally useless, like if the DJ is already on a flight to another continent. You don't need to text them, hey, are you coming? It's obvious they're not. Also, if demand would be totally useless, like if the DJ is already on a flight to another continent. You don't need to text them, hey, are you coming? It's obvious they're not. All right, on to party foul number 2. This time, the DJ is on time. Phew. But they show up with these old, busted speakers that sound awful, and you find out later they did it on purpose to save their best equipment for a bigger gig the next day. The sound is so bad, people start leaving. This isn't just a mistake, this is fraud or dolo. It's all about that deliberate intention to cheat you out of what you paid for. The key word is intent. Now for party foul number 3. Okay, so the DJ's gear is amazing this time. But then their roadie gets a little sloppy, puts a drink where it shouldn't be, and boom, spills it all over the equipment. The lights go out, the music dies, the party is literally plunged into darkness. See the difference here? It wasn't intentional. It was just plain careless. That is negligence, or culpa. It's a failure to be careful enough. And our last one, party foul number 4. The DJ's on time, the gear's perfect, nobody spills anything, but the contract specifically said high-energy pop music. And what are they playing? Gregorian chants. Yeah, you wanted Taylor Swift, you got medieval monks. This is what we call contravention of the tenor. It's basically a catch-all for when someone does the job, but not in the way they promised to do it. They violated the very terms of the deal. Okay, Section 3. Intentional versus accidental. Two of the trickiest ones to keep straight are fraud and negligence. And you can bet the LCPA loves to ask questions that test if you know the difference. So let's put them side by side. Was it on purpose, or was it just an accident?
This table breaks it down perfectly. For fraud or dolo, it's all about deliberate intention. There's bad faith. It's so serious, you can't even have a contract clause that says, hey, it's okay if you defraud me in the future. The law says no way, that's void. But with negligence or culpa, there's no deliberate intention. It's just a lack of care. And because of that, courts have the power to step in and adjust the liability based on the situation.
And fraud itself has levels. Let's dig in. First, we have dolo causante. The best way to think of this is catfishing. The lie is so huge that it's the reason you signed the contract. Like the DJ claims to be Martin Garrix, but he's not. If you'd known the truth, you would have never, ever signed. This makes the whole contract voidable. Then there's dolo incidente. This is more like using a heavy filter. The person is still who they say they are, but they lied about something less critical. Maybe the DJ said they had a laser light show, but they don't. You still would have hired them, but the lie caused some issues. Here, the contract stands, but you can definitely sue them for damages.
Okay, so far, everything has been the DJ's fault. But what if it's not? What if something happens that is completely 100% out of their control? Well, that brings us to Section 4, the ultimate excuse note. This excuse note is called a fortuitous event, or caso fortuito. Basically, it's an event that was either impossible to foresee, or even if you saw it coming, was impossible to avoid. We're talking about things like massive typhoons, earthquakes, often called acts of God. So back to our party. What if a massive typhoon barrels through town, causing a citywide blackout and a lockdown is declared? The DJ literally can't get to the venue. In this case, it's not their fault, and usually their obligation to perform is wiped out. But hold on, you can't just blame the rain and walk away. The law has a super strict checklist. All 4 of these things must be true. 1, the cause has to be totally independent of the debtor's will. Obviously, the DJ didn't create the typhoon. 2, the event itself has to be unforeseeable or unavoidable. 3, it has to make it truly impossible to fulfill the obligation, not just difficult. And 4, this is a big one, the debtor can't have done anything to make the damage worse. They have to be completely blameless.
And here's another LECPA pro tip you absolutely need to burn into your brain. A fortuitous event isn't always a magic escape hatch. There are big exceptions. For example, if the law or the contract says you're still liable, then you are. Or if the very nature of your job is to assume risk, like an insurer. But here is the #1 exception they will test you on. If you are already guilty of fraud, negligence, or delay, and then the fortuitous event happens, too bad. You're still liable. So far, DJ was already running late, and then the typhoon hit, they're still on the hook for damages. Whew, okay, that was a lot. But now for the part that really matters, making sure all this sticks. Welcome to Section 5, your LEPCA cheat sheet. Let's do a quick-fire review of the must-knows for your board exams. First up, default or mora. Key takeaway, it's all about time. The general rule is no demand, no delay. But you better know those exceptions cold. That's prime exam material. And the big consequence? If you're in delay, you're liable for any loss, even from a fortuitous event. Next, fraud, or dolo. The magic word here is intentional. Remember the difference. Dolo causante is the catfishing that can void the contract. Dolo incidente is the filter that just gets you damages. And the non-negotiable rule. Any waiver for future fraud is totally void. Period. Then we have negligence, or culpa. This is about being careless, not malicious. The standard of care you need to show follows a simple order. First, whatever the law requires. Second, whatever your contract says. And if neither says anything, the default is the diligence of a good father of a family, which just means, act like a reasonable person would. And finally, the fortuitous event. The general rule, it gets you off the hook. No liability. But only if you meet all 4 of those strict requirements. And what's the killer exception to remember? I'll say it again. If you're already in default, a fortuitous event will not save you. You're still liable. So there you have it. You know the rules, you know what a breach is, and you know the big excuses. But here's the final question I want to leave you with. In the real world, how do you actually prove any of this? How do you convince a court that something was intentional fraud and not just negligence? How do you prove a typhoon was truly unavoidable? Thinking about that, that's where the textbook ends and your career as a savvy professional really begins.